Welcome back to stage 3, which should be the final stage. And you can see here, it's going to be lighting. A few little details. So we're going to get the headlights wired up, which I've already got moved up from their stock bumper position and popped in the grill. And then we're going to work on this bumper, put a winch in, put some lights in. I've got some extremely tiny LEDs right here to go in those little light buckets. Those are Nano. They're probably too small. I could have gone probably one size up. And then I've got some typical 3mm to go in the actual bumper positions on each side. And then I've got my usual Detail Master braided line and these little jewelry hooks that I'll cut up and make into a winch hook. And then I've got some options here for splitters. You know, this is the typical kind of long, bulky one. And then I found this at A-Main, which is nice, very tiny, more affordable than the Club 5 splitter, but of course it's got more ports than I need. I only really need 2. So I found this one at RPP, and it's just a dual splitter, but it's 6 inches, so it's a little bit longer. It does have kind of a bulky head, but it's not that bad. So I'm going to look at how to maybe bring the bumper lights together. I think I want to switch those together and then switch the headlights separately. So anyways, we're going to jump in here and see if we can't start wiring things up. Alright, got the headlights in. Little progress. I'll show you how I put the extension on, use the servo extension, cut off the white signal wire, and of course tape that down around the magnets. And I'm really tight with that battery clearance, so I wanted to bring it over the fender, you know, of course through, taped it there, allowed enough slack for the hinge to happen, and then a little bit of tape here to secure it to the frame. And then I twisted it to put a little tension on it to keep it away from the spinning motor, and then drops right on there. So it's time for a little test here. So I've got it hooked up to the switch. So channel A on, that would be A off, B on. This would be A and B on, and this is everything off. So it looks like that's a success. We're prepped, ready for some bumper lights. So maybe the winch first, get that out of the way, and then I'll jump to the wiring of that, those micro lights. Alright, the winch is glued in, trimmed up, and you can see I got the little holes in for those little Nano LEDs. So those will press in from the back. They're little rectangles, and then the wires basically come off the back. So that's the front, that little yellow rectangle, so that'll press in. So I don't know if I'm just gonna super glue these or put a little tape on the back side to hold them, but I think I'm going to move to the bumper lights since those little guys are going to be so fragile. I'm going to go ahead and get the whip made for these guys, get that all soldered up and ready to go, and then I'll get this one on last, and then that should be it, besides figuring out the splitter connection and plugging it up. Alright, time for another checkpoint. Headlights, bumper lights, both. So that looks good. I got a little short whip made for the front bumper lights. It wasn't too hard, just used a servo extension cut up. So I decided to use this double extension, which I'm going to double side down once I get the other one plugged in. But you can see here I just cut a little piece of servo extension, cut off the white wire, and then wired in both LEDs to that. Just kind of tucked it under a body post for now. So I will double side this in place. And then this is just bundled and tie wrapped here, so it's not touching the motor. So that looks like that will all work out well. So now I've just got to put in the micro lights, and it looks like I'm going to have to run the bumper on the furthest post. It only has two screw holes, but I've got to run it on the furthest one back, I believe, because of those light buckets. Versus the bumper without the light buckets, I've got pushed all the way flush, and it looks really nice on the other Valkyrie. But I guess I'll see once I get those lights in there what that final fitment is, but it seems really tight on this one. Well, we are almost there. I cleaned up the workspace. Got a little nuts during all the wiring and soldering. But here is the finished product. I ended up having to use TEGU to get these little nano LEDs to hold. I tried CA glue, didn't take. I tried Gorilla Glue gel, it didn't work. So trusty TEGU always works. So a little bit of that, and then I came back and just a little dab on the back of everything. And then I came over the back side. I was going to paint that, but I came over with this, just a little rectangle of this masking tape. And that looks beautiful. You can't even tell. It almost matches the texture of the plastic. But I've still got the shrink wrap loose. I'm going to bend the wires kind of down under the grill, back up, kind of in the profile, and then heat that. So I'm just letting this cure up a little more. But, you know, tested it off the truck, all works. Put the lenses in. So in the end, hopefully you won't see any wire. I'll get all that shrink wrap up tight. But we'll get in the truck here in a bit and do a little lighting test. Bumper's on. Lights are in and wired, and man, it looks great. And I was going to show it to you, and as I was playing with it, I ended up pulling out the whole transmission and motor assembly, as you can see. So I ran it a little bit on 2S until the battery died, and then I was playing with it on 3S and still adjusting the motor for that kind of high-end cog. And then all of a sudden it just started kind of binding a little, and it ended up that both of these motor mount screws had come loose from these metal mounts. So I'm going to Loctite those. I had this silver one on the idler pinion. I had that with Loctite, this guy, but I didn't have these two. So I thought, hey, maybe that's the issue. So I went ahead, since I had it out, and just was testing it, just the motor, and it is doing it without the gear train. So the motor does have that cog, and it kind of bucks, which I don't like, just holding it by the wires while it does that. But it only does it at that super high end. So I'm going to take this and go plug it in, I think, to a TEGU on 3S and see, just to rule out the Lizard Pro, and then that will basically lead me to this being the motor having that issue at the high speed. Alright, moment of truth. Let me do a little test here. Looking like this. There we go. So smooth on the TEGU. So no problems on the TEGU. So maybe it is the Lizard Pro. I'm going to grab my other Lizard Pro and test it against that one. Alright, so I'm going to do another little test here to rule out the motor. So this is my other brand new Lizard Pro. I just bound to a new receiver. Just updated the firmware, and this is on 100% forward and 100% reverse throttle, so we can see if this has the same effect on the high end. Yep. Starts to buck right there. I don't even really want to do it. Yeah, I don't want to do it holding those wires. Like it's going to break them, but you can see what's happening. It's not the motor, because on the TEGU at top end it was smooth as butter, so the problem has something to do with the Lizard Pro ESCs. Could be a firmware release in the future may fix this. I don't know. I can reach out maybe to Fury Tech and see if they have any suggestions, but you know, both of these are brand new. They're both updated to the 1.3 firmware. Alright, well, got some bad news. I got it all installed back into the 6x6 and thought, well, I'll just run it on 2S for the time being, since there's the issue with 3S. Then I was testing it, and then I started feeling and hearing something strange, so I pulled it all back out, and it turns out that now the motor is cogging all over the place. So I plugged it back up to this TEGU to try to rule out the ESC again, and it's unfortunately it's doing it here, and it's so strange. Sometimes you can get through the cog and get to full speed, and sometimes it cogs fully all the way up. Let's see here, let me get this motor wire. This motor wire is already starting to rub through. You can see that little bit of silver so close to that can. So that's full throttle and it's just cogging away. There, I was able to get through it. Reverse. I can't get it to not cog. That's full throttle in reverse. Full throttle forward. If I'm very slow and smooth at the beginning, I can get out of the cog. Well, even there I didn't. So forward, reverse, just cogging full speed. There it was. I got through the cog, and I'm not, you know, so I don't know. I've now tested this on both systems, TEGU and the Lizard Pro, 2S and 3S, and it's just progressively gotten worse. So either I screwed up the motor, or maybe there was an issue with the motor and it's gotten worse. It's so strange because, you know, last test on the TEGU it was smooth. So maybe all this, you know, testing and stuff screwed up the motor. Maybe all that high-end cogging on 3S on the Pro damaged it. I'm not really sure, but I'm a little bummed because I'm not going to put this motor back in. I can't get it to do anything. The only thing I haven't tested it on is the Lizard, just the straight Lizard on 2S. But this is kind of ridiculous. So I think I'm going to order another Nano Beast to start fresh with a new one and go through all these tests again and just see if we can rule out a bunk motor. So anyway, long story short, there's not going to be a reveal into this just yet. Well, I guess before we go, I can give you a sneak peek of the lighting. for that grill, how I got it routed. And you can see here, I ended up taking a little out for the bumper posts and a little out for the bumper LEDs, just so this could sit down nice and flush. And you can see here what I was talking about. I took that shrink tube and I went ahead and bent the wires, and then I heated it so it goes down from the back of the lights, under the grill, and back up. And then that thin wire, I just looped kind of a figure 8 and tucked it under the body post mounts. And then they come over here, of course, to this splitter, and I've got that double-sided on my switch. So that worked out really, really well. You can't see the wires here on those front lights. You get just the shrink tube coming off of those down. I was able to get the bumper pulled all the way back to its closest in mount. When I close the body, I just kind of pull this out just a hair. But because of those LEDs, they really don't stick off of the back of those lights at all. They're basically flush, so they really didn't add any depth. So that worked out well. It all tucks in really tight. They look great. Obviously, I'm not going to show them to you because I've got a large vacancy here. So anyways, that's how it goes sometimes. We'll get to it in the next stage. So thanks for sticking with me, and stay tuned.